After Praxis moved to the south, well, the relative south anyway, he put out a video on making long, skinny raised bed boxes. They look like coffins for very tall, skinny individuals. But at any rate, he has used them successfully, and I wanted to just show you my version of how to put together one of these boxes. Now, these are the things that you need to put together one of these boxes. Basically, you need some long pieces of wood. All of this is scrap material. When I finished doing my rental property, refurbishing it, I had some leftover plywood, so I just cut it into 12-inch wide strips. And these are two of those strips. I took a couple of other scrap pieces and cut the ends off. These are 12 by 12 squares of plywood. Now I know you're asking me, why am I using just standard grade plywood? Well, this is kind of an experiment. And as you can see, these are 8 feet long because they were cut from a full sheet of plywood. I have some scrap 2x2 material. And of course, to get it all squared up and braced, I just cut a couple of 45-degree corners out of scrap to give it some bracing. In addition to those things, I'm going to need a couple of clamps, a long bar clamp. This just happens to be a cheap hand clamp from Harbor Freight that I have around, and a couple of spring clamps that I use to hold the corner pieces in place. I decided to do mine with screws. So, I mean, you can use a nail gun or you can use nails, whatever you want to use, that's perfectly fine. But I decided to use screws, and 1 1/4 inch screws is perfectly fine to put together this 1/2 inch plywood material and these 2x2s. I'm going to put these corner braces, or these pieces here, so that I can screw them in from the end piece, and then I can screw the side pieces into them, and it will give it good strength. I'm not worried about trying to put a screw through this very thin plywood here. And the way I need to do that, I need to offset it from the end. I assume that you can see that right there. I need an offset right here. The way I decide what that is, I just use a piece of material, scrap material, and set it right there so that when I screw this in place and then screw the next piece onto it, I'll have a nice flush corner. The way I'm going to handle this, I'm just going to use these two corners that I have here. I'm going to put them up right there, and what I'm going to do then is use these clamps and clamp them into place so that they will not move. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, what I want to do next is I want to screw these together. My plan was to put 2 screws in to this side and 3 screws in from this side. So that's 5 screws per corner, or 20 screws to put this together. Now, because it's somewhat hard to get these screws started, I'm going to be pre-drilling these holes, and I'm just going to come along here. I just got a small drill. I just want to get a couple of holes here to get these screws started. Then I'll switch over to my driver. And I'll screw these together. And again, I'm not worried, we're not building fine furniture, so I'm not really worried about how this looks, or whether it's flush, or whether it's countersunk, or whatever. I do want to down a little bit. So, and there we have one end. The other pieces will go on like that, and I'll drill 3 screws in there, and that's how our corners are going to be done. So I'll go ahead and do these corners and come back to you in just a minute.